In a lot of my videos, I talk about the power of unconditional love and the immense love that is in the universe that we have access to through our consciousness. A lot of people describe this immense, unfathomable, just totally immersive love that they experience when they have near-death experiences or shared death experiences or pre-birth memories. And they just describe this as our natural state. And yet we get veiled when we come to the planet and we don't remember that. Of course, sometimes we do. We do also experience love, pure love, if we're lucky. And I'm not even talking about romantic or sexual love, but just any kind of connection and feeling good with ourselves and with other people, and joy and bliss and harmony. So this is a beautiful thing. And I believe one of the big reasons that we're here is to enjoy life. However, sometimes life can really suck. And there's another part of life that is very much a part of the experience, and that is anger, rage, fear. We all go through this at one point in time or another, and I've certainly had my fair share. Over the last few years, there were times when I just felt like, the Hulk, just like I could just pound my fist into the earth and just wipe out everything on the planet. It was so intense. And I felt that way for a long time, especially I had a traumatic loss in 2018, and I had a really beautiful shared death experience, but then I had a lot of anger and rage and frustration come up, especially after not sleeping for many months. Everything was just exacerbated, and I was so angry, and I would go sometimes just drive out into the countryside and scream and play music really loud and just yell and yell and yell. And we don't always have a place we can do this. So I'm going to talk about just anger and rage, because they are very, very real, can be totally consuming emotions. I don't know if you're familiar with Nicole LaPera. She's known as the holistic psychologist on social media. That's her handle. And she's written some great books about how to do the work on yourself. And she posted something that was very poignant recently. She said, anger is telling you when your boundaries have been violated, your needs aren't being met, or an abusive pattern is being established. Listen to your anger. And this is really one of the purposes that anger and fear can serve, is survival, protecting us, setting boundaries, telling people no. And yet a lot of times, a lot of what happens to us, especially when we're young, we don't know how to set boundaries. We don't understand how our boundaries are being violated. And so we, as a means of protection, go into people pleasing and just trying to make everybody happy, and just agreeing and going along with things that might make us uncomfortable. So it is really, establishing boundaries is very difficult for some people, but it is really necessary and important. And yes, it's good to listen to it both for ourselves and others, because I see so oftentimes people getting, angry about some injustice that's being done, another mass shooting, another mass murder, or somebody being murdered because of the color of their skin, or whatever the injustice is. The Me Too movement that's been happening the last few years, that was, very much in the public awareness for a while. There's all this anger coming up from past trauma and oppression and repression, and not being able to speak about these traumas and experiences as they happened. For one, people don't believe the victims. And then also it's where do we go? How do we speak it? And what justice is going to be served for the perpetrators? So it's a very complex thing to speak up and out against injustices in the world, because a lot of the people that do get shamed, and there's a lot of gaslighting, and it's just a mess. So it's not an easy thing to process and release anger in a healthy way. What are some healthy ways to do this, to release anger and rage? I know that in my experience in the past, like I said, all I wanted to do was smash shit, just period. I just wanted to throw glasses, like bottles against walls, and just like pound shit and punch it. So like literally boxing, drumming, getting that movement, that energy and movement like through your arms. If you live near a place where you can throw or smash stuff safely, by all means, go for it. There are rage rooms in certain places where, you go in with protective gear, goggles, and, you can break things with a bat or your hand or throw things against the wall. And sometimes we just have to move that energy through. In a recent video that I did with Emily Turnbull, she was talking about her near-death experience, and we started talking about the act of just shaking, like physically shaking when a trauma happens, or when there is a stuck trauma. Sometimes just shaking it out of our system can be beneficial. Another way to move rage and anger out of the system is to vocalize it in many ways. This could be screaming. And I, like I said, used to drive out into the country and just scream and scream and scream. I'd roll up my windows and play music really loud and just scream at the top of my lungs. But we're not always in a place where we can scream safely. And in a video that I posted recently with Dmitry, the life script doctor who does the Ukrainian spa system, he was showing something that I think is really brilliant. And that is, if you need to scream and you're not in a safe place to do so, put your head in a bowl of water and just scream and scream into the water. But the key is that you don't want to use that water after. Like, don't drink it or give it to somebody, because it has all that energy in it. Pour the water into the toilet or, someplace to dispose of it safely. So screaming, other ways to vocalize includes just talking to somebody who will listen. Sometimes even just talking to yourself, and you might look like a crazy person. I was talking with some friends of mine that are from a different country, and I was like, I can't just like yell and scream or, talk about this person. And they're like, why not? In my country, like that would just be another day, a day in the life. You walk down the street, somebody's yelling and screaming. And I mean, I've certainly seen that in the US too, but vocalizing, talking to someone safe, either, friend or therapist, or oftentimes my favorite is to talk to somebody I don't know, a stranger, like in a 12-step program, somebody that is, just safe and anonymous and can listen to you without judgment. And that's the key. And this is why we often don't speak our truth out, because people don't understand. They'll judge, they'll, dismiss and belittle, or they'll offer advice, which is sometimes really annoying and the last thing that you want to hear. Finding other ways to vocalize could be singing, like start a screamo band. It could be something that you're just doing in the privacy of your own home, but just singing or writing, journaling, if that feels safer than actually talking to somebody, but you need to get these thoughts out of your head. And then if you write something down and you're verbalizing something on paper that you don't feel comfortable, like you just want to get it out, you could afterward burn that paper or tear it up or put it in water or do some kind of ceremonial thing with it. And let's see, another thing this came up for me so strong was just exercising or movement, walking, running, swimming, again, punching or doing some kind of aggressive movement that allows you to get that energy moving through and out of your system. And also just the blood flow and increased oxygen is really good for stress. A really great way to move, and it's my personal favorite, is dancing. And that can be, it's like you can find any kind of way that your body needs to move to release this built up tension and stress. And it might be kind of soft and slow movements, or you might be like jumping up and down and just like, doing any kind of movement that you need to. But then also dancing can bring in joy. And this is one of the other things is if you're in this state of misery or anger or rage. I mean, I've been in it in times when it was like weeks or even months and it was not going to budge. It was not going to go anywhere. So sometimes it really takes hold. But anything that you can do to change the atmosphere, to change the mood, is really beneficial. Creating, art, painting, drawing, making stuff. I love doing handcrafts. And whenever I make crafts, it's like, I just can't help but feel some joy just I love the process. I get ideas. It's fun to see something that you've made. So any kind of creation, but this free flow using like paint or just something where you can literally just throw the emotions and your the feelings of whatever is going on, rage, anger, sadness, joy, love, throw it into the art. Getting out into nature, a really, really beautiful way to just kind of soften some of the emotions and intensity of anger and rage. Doesn't mean that it'll necessarily all go away, but any steps that you can take to reconnect with feeling just kind of centered and grounded and whole again. And it's not always an easy process, especially if you've been through really intense trauma. And and it can feel like anything that you do is just, you're just completely consumed by this. Then there are also therapies for trauma, EMDR, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. This is a really, really great one that helps bring in acceptance to any situation. There's a couple more things that I found to be really, really effective. And for myself, like I've practiced meditation, I've done meditation for many years, but there were times in my intense grief when I couldn't even sit to meditate for more than like 5 or 10 minutes at a time, or this rage that was just there, not very far beneath the surface, would just come up and completely consume me. So I would do little bits of meditation and I would close my eyes and I would just feel, just closing your eyes and just feeling what's going on in the body, because chances are there's going to be some intense feeling of either a pain or some kind of, tenseness or like tightness or a burning sensation, or sometimes I feel it as like kind of like a shaking or just fiery hot, whatever it is, whatever you feel, wherever it is in the body, whether it's the head, the throat, the chest, the back, the legs. Just allow yourself to feel it and kind of breathe. And this is what changed everything for me a few years ago in 2018, when I was really, really deep in anger and completely consumed by it. Was I finally just sort of surrendered to it. And rather than try and fight or resist it, I just completely allowed myself to feel it. And it was actually a really beautiful thing. What happened was it started to change. And I realized that this suffering that I had been going through was part of the human experience. And I just completely embraced this anger as, it is a natural response to a lot of things, loss, injustice, any kind of, change or thing that we feel is not right or not right for us, or it's hurting us or somebody else. It's very natural to be angry. And I just completely embraced that. And it was like all of a sudden the resistance just dissolved, and I kind of absorbed this anger and all the range of emotions, and just realized that this is the totality. This is the experience of life. And, it wasn't something that happened instantly. Well, that experience did happen instantly, but over time, another thing started to happen and grow, was everywhere I went and everyone I looked at and everything that I saw and felt was just complete unity. Like everything was just part of this experience of life, and I was part of it, and it was part of me. It was me. Everything from here to the edge of this known universe and beyond that, everything just became part of my totality, my existence, my being, myself. And this was so strong, such a palpable feeling. And this, again, only came from the acceptance of this experience that I was considering to be suffering and a struggle. And it certainly, sure as heck, felt like it at the time. But it was something that was eventually allowing me to grow and to expand, both in my experience of compassion and understanding for myself, and the ability to forgive myself and others, and also the gratitude that really became so strong as I then became able to fully embrace and enjoy life. It wasn't an overnight process, and it's something, it's not like one and done, here I am, in this state of unity all the time. Not at all. But it was a very strong glimpse of it that became a very just complete experience of understanding of reality. And I think this is something that sometimes these extreme situations that we go through, it is to sort of squeeze us. This pressure that we go through is to sort of squeeze us into, it's like a coal, when it's put under pressure, it eventually becomes a diamond. And this pressure does help us to grow and evolve as people. And there are other physiological things that you can also do, because anger, fear, rage often go along with a lot of heat, fire. These are very fiery emotions. Having anti-inflammatory foods, cooling the system, getting out into, cool air, water, swimming, looking at moonlight on water. There are cooling herbs and foods like roses, for example, having some rose petal tea or rose petal water, rose petal jam. I'm a big fan of roses. I do have little bottles of rose oil here, which is also good for the emotional processing. In Ayurvedic terms, it's called sadhaka pitta. And so it can be good for that. There are many herbs and oils and foods and remedies for that. But one I'm going to talk about in another video is panchakarma. And this was something at the time when I was going through this intense rage. I hadn't slept in months, and I had like blistery rashes all over my skin, and it was so bad. My nose was bleeding all the time. I was just like hot, and any little bit of emotion or rise in my blood pressure or anger or sadness, my nose would start to bleed. And then I did about almost 2 weeks of panchakarma at a clinic in Fairfield, Iowa called the Raj, and it completely transformed my physiology. So panchakarma is an amazing way to balance out the mind, body, spirit complex. So I'm going to go into that in great detail in another video. But for now, I just want to leave you with this note on rage and anger. It's totally okay to experience it. I think it's maybe even necessary. And just find some ways to express it and shake it and get it out a little bit. If you can find a way to release some of this built up rage, or, maybe not even built up, maybe it's just completely erupting. If you can find a way to deal with it and channel it and really alchemize it, it will shift. And you will start to experience more joy and happiness. But there are many different levels. And even energetically, I do energy work. And even sometimes there's a lot of discord in the lower chakras, maybe the root, sacral, or solar plexus chakra. There can be a lot of rage and anger sort of built up in that area. And so sometimes there's some things that can be done in that area that you can do on yourself and visualize, or you can work with somebody else like myself or somebody who can attune to that and help you balance out and get the energy flowing in a way that's more productive. Because one of the things that often happens is this rage and anger comes up and sort of bypasses the heart, and we shoot it out and we yell at somebody, we scream at somebody, and we, completely verbally attack somebody because we're not flowing in the most harmonious way. And this is, again, it happens. This is life. But finding ways to work with it is really important, both for your own health and the sake of others, but especially your own health, to find a way to do some forgiveness and gratitude over time is really important, because the longer you hold on to this, the longer it's going to be very detrimental to your health. So I'm wishing you well, and I'm wishing you, beautiful abundance of health and prosperity, so that you can work through whatever it is you're going through and find ways to transform this emotion into something positive and useful in the long run. Right? Blessings. Goodbye.